Move that junk heap before it stains the lot, old man. That's what the salesman shouted as I parked by the curb, hands still greasy from the morning's repairs. He didn't know my name, didn't know why I was there, but he would, because 2 minutes later, a black SUV glided in behind me. The back door opened, and when the man in uniform stepped out, the salesman's smirk vanished along with the sound from the entire lot. If you believe silence says more than swagger, comment respect below. Raymond Tate, 76, is a retired Army mechanic. After decades of service and small-town repairs, he still helps neighbors from a wooden garage behind his trailer. Not for the money, his military pension covers the essentials, but because idle hands make for restless thoughts. And because engines speak a language he's understood longer than English. His hands tell his story better than words ever could. Thick fingers permanently darkened with the ghost of oil stains. No amount of scrubbing can remove calluses layered upon calluses from wrenches and ratchets, and the edges of metal, both freezing cold and burning hot depending on the seasons and situation. His truck is old, dented, rust-framed, but it still runs like him. A 78 Ford that's traveled more miles than most commercial airliners. The exterior shows every year of his life, paint faded to a color that has no name, patches of primer that never got proper finishing, a passenger door that's clearly from a different vehicle altogether. But under the hood, perfection, an engine maintained with the precision and care usually reserved for museum pieces. It starts first try every time, regardless of temperature or circumstance. Every month, Raymond visits a nearby luxury dealership, not to buy but to look. Hands clasped behind his back, he studies the new models with the focused attention of someone reading sacred texts. He admires how modern engines have evolved, always curious. Learning never stops for men like Raymond, not at retirement, not at any arbitrary milestone. Knowledge is gathered continuously like breathing. The staff mostly ignore him, a familiar presence they've categorized as harmless, but irrelevant. A few roll their eyes when they spot his truck pulling in. They know he won't be purchasing the high-end vehicles with their six-figure price tags and financing options. But this time there's a new salesman, young, ambitious, wearing a suit that still has the crisp lines of recent purchase. Name tag reading Connor in letters that match the dealership's signature blue. The moment Raymond parks near the lot edge, the young man storms out, not approaching with customer service, politeness, but with territorial aggression, like Early has violated an unspoken boundary between those who belong and those who don't. Move that junk heap before it stains the lot, old man. The words carry across the asphalt loud enough that heads turn inside the showroom. Other customers pause their browsing to watch through the large glass windows. Raymond looks up, wipes his hands with an oily rag, says nothing. His expression doesn't change. Not anger, not embarrassment, not defiance. Just quiet assessment. The same way he'd look at an engine with an unfamiliar sound, identifying the source before determining response. This isn't a junkyard tour, the man adds with a laugh, glancing back at the showroom to ensure his audience appreciates the performance. We sell luxury vehicles here. The scrap metal yard is 3 miles east. A few chuckles drift from the doorway where other salespeople have gathered to watch. Not full laughter. Recognize the cruelty, but not intervention either. The subtle compliance that allows everyday unkindness to continue. Unchallenged, Raymond backs up his truck, slowly parks by the sidewalk and stands still waiting for something. His movements deliberate, unhurried. The same careful precision he applies to timing belts and carburetor adjustments. Nothing wasted, nothing rushed. He doesn't curse, doesn't look angry, just waiting as if he knows something others don't. As if time itself were a tool in his considerable collection, one that requires patience rather than force. From the sidewalk he can still see the new models through the showroom windows, can still study their lines, their design evolutions, the engineering choices, visible even from a distance. His education continues despite the interruption, his curiosity undimmed by disrespect. Some lessons don't require words. Some strength doesn't need display. Some men know their worth regardless of whether others recognize it. Inside the showroom, customers chuckle. The moment has become entertainment. The dismissal of an old man in dirty clothes transformed into communal amusement. One even snaps a photo with his phone. The modern instinct to document moments of social hierarchy being enforced to share someone else's diminishment for likes and comments. Caption, Rust trying to flirt with royalty. The kind of casual cruelty social media encourages distance between action and consequence, between mockery and the human being receiving it. Connor, The salesman returns to the showroom with theatrical swagger. Some people just don't know their place, he says loudly enough for others to hear. A few nod, others look uncomfortable but say nothing. The silent majority that enables through an action. Raymond just watches. Not with the wounded gaze of someone harmed, but with the steady assessment of someone gathering information. His posture remains straight despite his years. Military bearing doesn't disappear with discharge papers or retirement. While ceremonies, it becomes bone and sinew, outlasting even memory. His hands blackened from grease rest on the tailgate, the contrast stark against the faded blue metal working hands on a working vehicle, both showing honest wear rather than polished pretense. Then headlights are low controlled, a vehicle approaching with deliberate precision, not the casual entry of regular customer traffic. Something about its pace suggests purpose rather than browsing. A black SUV pulls in behind him, slow as shadow, government plates, tinted windows, the quiet authority of official business rather than commercial interest. The sales rep immediately changes tone, professional instincts, recognizing potential high-value opportunity. "Sir, looking for something exclusive today?" His voice carries across the pavement, attempting to intercept this new arrival before they reach Raymond, attempting to redirect what he assumes is a navigation error. The SUV doesn't stop for him. It stops for Raymond, perfect alignment, as if the two vehicles had rehearsed their positioning, the precision of military coordination visible in civilian context. A uniformed man steps out, decorated polished shoes, silver eagle pin catching sunlight with subtle gleam, full colonel's insignia, not dressed uniform but service uniform, official capacity rather than ceremonial appearance. "Sergeant Tate," the officer says, not a question of uncertainty but of protocol. The way military personnel confirm identity before proceeding. Raymond nods once. No surprise in his expression, no vindication either, just acknowledgement, the simple confirmation between professionals who understand rank and recognition. The man removes his cover, steps closer and salutes. Not the casual approximation civilians sometimes offer, but the precise execution of formal respect. Arm at exact angle, fingers positioned with technical correctness. Hold time to military standard. "Sir, your hands rebuilt the convoy that got us out of Kandahar in 2006. You don't know me, but I owe you my life." Words delivered with the economy of someone accustomed to official communication. No dramatic emphasis, just factual acknowledgement carrying more weight through its simplicity. The lot freezes, phones lower, eyes widen. The tableau suddenly transformed from mockery to revelation, the invisible becoming visible, the dismissed becoming central, the rewriting of narrative happening in real time without announcement or ceremony. The salesman who mocked him, he steps back speechless, color draining from his face as understanding dawns. The recalibration of reality when assumptions collapse against evidence. The uncomfortable recognition of misjudgment that can't be undone or excused. 3 vehicles completely rebuilt, transmissions and engines under fire. The colonel continues, each detail adding weight to the revelation. Command said impossible. You said give me 6 hours. They rolled out in 5. Raymond shrugged slightly. Had good tools. The understatement hangs in the air, the gap between accomplishment and acknowledgement, revealing more about character than any bows could communicate. Some men diminish their achievements not from false modesty but from genuine perspective about what matters. Inside the showroom, people press against windows. The scene outside has transformed from comedy to something else entirely, something that makes luxury cars and financing terms suddenly seem trivial, disconnected from actual value. The colonel extends his hand. Raymond takes it. 2 men connected not by social status or financial bracket but by moments where life and death hinged on competence and commitment, by understanding that some forms of excellence never appear on resumes or in advertisements, but in the quiet spaces where duty meets capability. And in that handshake, something shifts in the dealership's atmosphere, a recalibration of what constitutes worth, a silent questioning of what deserves respect and what deserves mockery, a momentary glimpse beyond the surface that marketing both creates and exploits. If you believe true heroes don't brag, they build, fix and walk away. Subscribe to Steelheart Stories now. The officer introduces himself, Colonel Samuel Reed, Logistics Command, U.S. Army. Not with the practiced smoothness of someone accustomed to leveraging rank for social capital, but with the straightforward identification of one professional to another. He wasn't just visiting, he was looking for Raymond. Deliberate search, rather than chance encounter. The appearance of coincidence revealing itself as intentional connection. When our database pulled your name last week, I couldn't believe you were still turning wrenches. The colonel gestures toward Raymond's hands, the permanent evidence of lifelong mechanical work. Most guys with your skill set are consulting for defense contractors making six figures. Raymond shrugs. Engines don't care what decade it is. They just want attention. Simple philosophy expressed without pretension. The wisdom of someone who understands that some truths remain constant, regardless of context or era. They talk beside the truck. Not about metals but about torque, old steel, and when spark plugs change standards. Technical details that would bore most listeners, but represent a shared language between men who understand that machines are more than assemblies of parts. The conversation of specialists who recognize expertise without needing credentials or introductions. A crowd gathers, not pressing close, but maintaining respectful distance. The natural formation that occurs around authentic authority rather than asserted status. One customer walks over and shakes Raymond's hand. No words exchanged, just the wordless acknowledgement between men who recognize that some contributions transcend explanation. The salesman he watches from inside no longer smirking, his earlier confidence replaced by uncertainty. The comfortable hierarchy he inhabited now destabilized by revelation, by the understanding that he misjudged not just a person but an entire category of value. The dealership manager appears. He saw the footage on security cams. Middle-aged with the careful neutrality of someone who navigates between commerce and ethics daily. His assessment immediate and decisive. Mr. Tape, please accept our profound apologies for any disrespect shown. This dealership has always honored military service. Raymond nod. No dramatic forgiveness offered. No wounded dignity requiring elaborate restoration. Just acknowledgement that the message has been received. Some men don't need apologies. They simply register whether understanding has occurred. That evening after Raymond has gone home, the dealership quietly installs a plaque near the front sidewalk. Reserve Sergeant Raymond Tate, Mechanic Veteran Honor, without horns. A small but permanent acknowledgement, not publicity or promotion but recognition. The difference subtle but significant. Raymond doesn't attend the place. He's under a car somewhere, fixing what someone else forgot to care for. His life continuing in its established rhythm, regardless of revealed identity or public recognition. His value existing independently of whether others perceive it. Colonel Reed files a report recommending Raymond for a civilian service medal. Not because Raymond requested it, he didn't, but because some contributions deserve official acknowledgement. Even decades later, some excellence continues long after uniforms are put away. The young salesman Connor requests transfer to another branch. Not from direct instruction but from the understanding that some mistakes change how spaces feel permanently. Some lessons require distance to fully absorb. Some growth happens only through relocation. And through it all, engines continue running, vehicles continue moving, the world continues functioning because of hands most people never see, maintaining systems most people never consider. Days pass. People start recognizing him around town, not because he said anything, but because the story traveled on its own. The organic transmission of narrative that happens in communities when something authentic disrupts the regular patterns. When someone previously invisible only becomes visible in new context. Raymond's routine doesn't change. Still up at 5 a.m., still coffee from the same chipped mug. Still the meticulous maintenance of tools that have lasted longer than most marriages. The revelation alters external perception without changing internal reality. The hallmark of genuine character, rather than constructed persona. A father brings his teenage son to Raymond's garage. Teach him how to respect tools and men. The request simple but profound. The recognition that technical skill and human character are connected rather than separate. That how we treat objects reflects how we understand value beyond immediate utility or appearance. Raymond doesn't lecture, shows instead, guides the boy's hands through the practical physics of torque, the chemistry of combustion, the engineering principles that remain constant despite technological evolution, lessons about patience and precision delivered through task rather than theory. One morning, Raymond finds a folded flag tucked into the truck bed. No note. No explanation, just the triangular shape of official military honors, precisely folded, placed with obvious care. Anonymous recognition from someone who understands that some contributions require acknowledgement, even when the recipient doesn't seek it. Another day, a young soldier parks nearby, leaves his toolbox open waiting for advice.
not demanding teaching or claiming entitlement to Raymond's time, but creating opportunity for connection if offered. The silent communication between generations that doesn't require announcement or formality. Raymond never charges them. Money would transform the interaction, shift the dynamic from transmission of wisdom to transaction of service. Some forms of value exist specifically because they operate outside commercial exchange. He still visits the dealership once a month, still parks by the sidewalk, still quiet. The ritual maintained not from stubbornness, but from genuine interest in engineering evolution, his education continuing regardless of circumstances or reception. But now no one tells him to move. They just know. The small acknowledgement between people who recognize each other's presence without requiring explanation or justification. The basic human courtesy that should be universal but often becomes conditional based on perceived status or value. Sometimes the dealership manager brings out coffee, not with fanfare or announcement, just a simple cup placed on the truck's hood while Raymond studies the new models. Wordless recognition that some visitors contribute through presence rather than purchase. The plaque remains not prominently displayed like sales awards or financing options, but permanently installed. A small reminder that value exists in many forms, that worth transcends transaction, that some contributions happen without advertisement or promotion. Because sometimes a man's value isn't parked in the showroom, it's written in the engines he brought back to life. In the vehicles that carried others to safety when circumstances turned dire, in the quiet competence that continues long after recognition or requirement, in hands that build rather than boast, that repair rather than replace, that create function without demanding acknowledgement of their essential role in keeping the world moving forward. Subscribe to Steelheart Stories if you believe honor drives quietly, but it always arrives.